Hi, I'm Matthew, and if you're here, you're probably struggling. Now, it might be that you're finding your work difficult or stressful. It might be that you are finding your job, your work, your career to be very unfulfilling, and you're questioning your choices and wanting to change direction but feeling stuck and unable to do that. You might have been made redundant. You might be having financial problems. You might be struggling in a relationship that maybe isn't working out. It might be that you just can't explain it, that you're just struggling and you feel as though you're carrying the weight of the world around with you and you don't know why. Now, the first thing to highlight, if you are here and you are struggling, regardless of what the reason is that it's normal. Struggling is normal. It's human. It's just part of life. Now, no one likes it. No one enjoys struggling. But particularly as men, we can find it very, very difficult to admit to struggling, and there can be a lot of negative connotations about that, what that means for us as men. And so it can be very difficult to acknowledge, accept. And a big part of that is recognising that it's normal. That you don't have to feel ashamed of yourself or that you're the only person that's struggling. That's the first thing I want to highlight. Now, what isn't normal? Struggle is normal. What isn't normal for men in particular is to accept it and to seek help for it. It's hard to admit that we're not coping, that we're not happy. Now, there's a number of reasons why that can be the case with men, and one or more of these may well resonate with you. There can be a lot of expectation placed on us, both from ourselves and also from wider society, around what it kind of means to be a man, how we've been brought up as boys, young men, to that we have to be strong. We have to be the strong, reliable, dependent one, the one that just gets on with it, the one that can cope with whatever life throws at him. And we can't show weakness. We can't show and admit to struggling, that we have to carry on regardless, that we can't take time off work. And looking back, certainly my generation, I mean, yeah, I don't remember my dad ever being off work sick. Sorry, Dad, he'd had a heavy sesh the day before, which wasn't frequent, but he'd have an annual trip that guaranteed he wouldn't be at work the next day. But yeah, we can't take time off. We can't admit we're struggling. And one of the big fears, we fear how people may perceive us if we admit to really struggling. So, if we're struggling at work, we may worry about how our employer, our colleagues will see us, and how it might affect our chances if we try and speak to somebody about that. In a personal situation, or again in a situation perhaps in our work life that will bring it back into a family situation, we can worry about the impact it will have on our family to, again, admit that we're finding life difficult, that we don't feel that we're coping, because you're going as the man of the house, the man of the family. That's something that, if that changes, if we don't feel we're coping and able to fulfill that perceived role at that time, we can affect that. We can be concerned that will affect the wider family and their relationship with us. And there's a fear that we will be seen as somehow less of a man if we are struggling, if we can't cope, if we cry. We're the ones that have the shoulders to cry on. We're not the ones that need a shoulder to cry on. So maybe some of that will resonate with you, and it might be how you're feeling right now. Again, it's highlighting that you won't be the only one. You're certainly not the only one that feels that way, and I've felt that way myself, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experiences and how that's led to me being here speaking with you now, and the work that I now do, and the purpose I feel is mine now, in terms of really helping people that are in that same position to not feel that you're alone, and to know that all of these fears that you have, all these worries, they can be dealt with, they can be overcome. And not only can you kind of get through your struggles and carry on, but you can use those struggles as things that you can really learn and grow from, and actually life can be better as a result of those struggles, even though it might not feel that way now. Now, as I said, a lot of these ideas of what it means to be a man are very deeply ingrained within us and within society, and they form part of the narrative of what it means to be a man. Now, this idea of a narrative, the stories that we tell ourselves, is something I'm going to come on to, because it's a way that's been very helpful for me to look at my life and to make necessary changes in my life. But at this point, I just want to look at this idea of some stories that we're told as men, and that we might take in even subconsciously. And we as a species, human being, we're a storytelling species. Okay, so stories are how we make sense of the world. There's that part, we all want to find meaning in our lives and have things make sense because we feel safer that way. So we have these stories that make us feel comfortable and know what to expect from life. A man should be this way, as one, for instance. And one of the things that we're told, again, whether that be outright told or whether we soak up from how society is and the people around us, is that men don't do emotion. And I've got one word I want to say to that: bollocks. It's bollocks. What men can't do or struggle to do is display certain types of emotion. Of course men do emotion, right? Most men, big followers of football. What do they call a stadium where there's a derby match or a final, a big game? It's a cauldron of emotion. Of course it is, but it's acceptable emotion. It's emotion that men are expected to feel and allowed to feel. So, we're allowed to jump up and down and hug and kiss our mates and cry if we win or lose at a football match. But if you want to hug off your mate when you feel that you're in the depths and you don't know how to cope, well, we feel very uncomfortable about that. It's not happening. We're not going to do it. Breaking down and crying in front of your friends or crying at work, for instance. You'd be mortified. But, we'll show off if we're caught by Sky Sports in a final when we've just won. We'd share it with all our mates online because it's acceptable then. So this idea that we don't do emotions, utter bollocks, because ultimately we're human and human beings are emotional creatures. And one way or another, our emotion, we can bury them. And men are very good at this. We can bury our emotions and how we feel. And I was doing a bit of work recently on a men's health campaign, and one of the stories we heard was a guy, and it really stuck with me. He told of how he would go into the bathroom, have a bath, and cry his eyes out in the bath, and then he'd get out, dry himself off, get dressed, go back out to his wife and kids, absolutely fine. They never knew what he was going through. And that's what men do. We hide it. We either push it right down and don't express it at all, or we express it in ways that aren't healthy or suppress it in ways that aren't healthy. So we might fight, for instance, as a way of getting out the hurt, the pain, the anger we feel inside. Again, all emotions that we feel. It's about how we can safely express them and manage them. We might push them down. We might use things like alcohol or sex as drugs as ways to suppress and run from essentially those really painful, difficult emotions that we feel. But that doesn't go away. It doesn't heal them. It doesn't cure us. It doesn't ease our struggles to do that. It might in the short term, but it doesn't solve whatever it is that our struggle is telling us about what's wrong in our life, what needs addressing in our life or within ourselves. Now, so this, again, I think I've made the point. This notion that men don't feel emotion, it's bollocks. As is this idea that men don't want to talk about how they feel and don't want to be able to admit that they're struggling. Now, again, and I use this word struggle because this is when I was in a real dark place, and I'll talk a little bit about that, something that we'll look forward to. There is a useful purpose to it. I would say I'm struggling. I'm really struggling, and that was the kind of language that was kind of constantly in my head, really. but another is that I'm not coping, I'm not managing, I'm not coping. Now, and like I said, this idea that men don't want to talk about that. Nobody wants to carry a burden alone. We don't. No one wants to feel that whole weight of the world and expectation and pressure on our own shoulders. We don't want that. Again, we're a social species. We want to have connections and be able to share and find find people that are like us, that get it, and to share our struggles with them, because that can then show us how we can overcome it. Now, so none of us like to carry a burden alone, and like I said, these emotions, these feelings, it will come out, it will show itself one way or another, whether it be acting out or whether it be dragging us into a pit of depression or whatever it might be, whether it causes us to be physically ill, stress, heart attack, whatever it might be, one way or another, it will kind of make itself known, felt, it will impact us in our lives. Now, I know that men will talk, and men are hugely grateful to be given the opportunity to be able to talk and to let out that emotion and to let out all of those feelings and to get that out of the system. The crucial thing is that we need a society, we need environments where men feel safe and able to do that. Because, like I said, this idea that we don't do emotion bollocks, but we need to feel, in order to be able to talk and to show our emotion, it needs to be acceptable. It needs to be something that we're not judged for, we're not criticised for, we're not belittled for, that it won't impact on our career opportunities, that we won't be seen as any less of a man. Once we know those things, that we won't be judged, that someone will listen, that someone will care, that someone will get it, then men will spill all kinds. And I know this directly. We all want to feel heard, understood. We all want to feel that we belong, that there's, again, people that can relate to where we are and where we are and the things that we're struggling with in our lives. And like I said, I know that both through my own experiences in terms of struggling very badly with 3 major periods and episodes of depression in my life over the last 15 years. I've had 3 major episodes that led to me taking, combined, over a year off work, and so I know this very much from kind of a lived experience point of view, but also in my work. So as a result of my experiences, I've become very, very passionate about raising awareness of mental health, and for two main reasons. That I want to help create a society where more people understand mental health and mental ill health, and so we can have these conversations where people can admit that they're struggling, and you're not just going to get told the old, oh well, I didn't feel like getting up this morning, but I got myself into work, and snap yourself out with all this kind of crap. I want people to understand what it's like, and also I want people that are struggling to see that you can get through it. But not only that, like I said earlier, your life can actually end up being better because of it, because it allows you an opportunity to really discover what isn't working for you in your life, and to build a new, to build on that, and to build a better life for you as a result of what you learn. So like I said, I want to tell you a little bit about my own experiences, because I feel that helps. Like I've said, those kind of stories can, we're resonating with people, and by hearing from someone that understands it, that gets it, that's been there, can really help us. And I know it helped me when I was struggling. So I first experienced depression in 2006. I had a charmed life, I believed. I'd had a really good upbringing, good childhood. I'd never wanted for anything. I I'd been fortunate. I also have been fortunate enough. I mean, I worked hard, but I ended up working in something that I was passionate about. I was good at sport as a kid. I ended up working in sport for over 20 years, and 11 of those were working in boxing, a sport that I'm passionate about and I love. And so, you know, in my work, I'm meeting people that I used to watch on telly with my dad when I was a kid and becoming friends, and you know, it's just amazing. Got to box in the Olympic gym with Anthony Joshua, watching Carl Froch, having the photos taken with the belts. You know, I mean, you know, that's what you're dealing with. But no, I had a very charmed life, and I always knew it. You know, I was very grateful every day. You know, we hear about the importance of gratitude. I had that. I had a wonderful career. I had a family. I was married. I have two beautiful kids. And yet I've experienced depression 3 times, and crippling depression to the extent that I didn't feel I could be here anymore. Not that I didn't want to be, but I didn't want to live. I said live. It wasn't living. Exist barely in that state. It was horrific, horrendous. And now, you know, I can look back at things that, you know, events that contributed to that, but it's not like I was, you know, again, miserable with my life, with my career, with, you know, certain things happen. I mean, you know, we always do, but nothing that I could say, you know, that would logically lead to, you know, someone that was always, you know, pretty confident, chatty, all the rest of it, into the depths that it did. Now, I want to tell you, describe a little bit about how that felt, because this is something. I'm reaching over the book that I wrote about my experiences, but this is something I want to share because writing this resonated. It helped a lot of people, and I've had a lot of people contact me saying, yeah, that's it, that's what it feels like, you know, you get it. And it helps us to feel less alone in our struggles when we know that someone else gets it. So this is how it felt to me. At its worst, depression is an all-consuming, torturous, desperate, lonely, terrifying illness that has the power to strip you of your very sense of self, to crush your self-worth and your dignity as you try and fail to face the obstacles, both real and those perceived in your damaged mind, of everyday life. Depression closes around you like a prison, and from within its walls it's all but impossible to conceive of a way to escape. You are no longer you. And it is incredibly difficult to comprehend just who and what it is that depression has turned you into. At its most severe, depression offers not a single moment of respite from its cruel grip. The physical sensation of your head trapped in a vice, with a storm of terrifying thoughts constantly battering your mind, shaking, sweating, losing the ability to think and speak coherently, and the ability to spontaneously smile and laugh cut from your being as if by a surgeon. This suffering can persist, unrelenting, for months, and in some cases for years. And so, exhausted, the only haven appears to be beneath the covers, where we find one final cruelty, as our ability to sleep is lost. Now that, it's not pleasant to kind of read that and to remember how that felt. But one of the things that I think it really highlights is that depression is a real illness, and a serious illness. You know, it's not, and I have this saying, it's not what you think. Because, and I mean that in 2 ways, because people have this notion that, you know, you're thinking crappy thoughts and therefore you become depressed. Oh, you know, I don't like my life. Oh, it's not like that. It's something that grips you and consumes you, and you might not have any kind of conscious sense of what's underpinning that. And say, like, for me, it was, I you know, consciously I knew everything I had, and I was telling myself all the time, I've got this, I've got that. But it doesn't matter when you're in the grip of an illness. So it's not what you think in terms of, you know, it's not just you think that and you end up like that, and it's not just the kid, and it's not what you think in the sense of, again, it's not just I can't get up out, you know, I didn't feel like getting up this morning. It's a debilitating illness that has real physical effects as well. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. You stop looking after yourself. Now, like I said, I want to help people to understand this, and you can't understand that if you haven't been there, not fully. I mean, I I always describe it as like a switch flipping in my head between me that you see here, with this is me, this is, and what I became when I was ill, which was unrecognisable, and obviously I described it there. And me now, I cannot relate to that. I just, what? How? That was me? And yet, and when I was there, who's this? I couldn't relate to this and how I am now, because that depression stripped me of all of that. And I explain this in a way that I hope gets some sort of sense to people that haven't been there. And I liken it to being pissed as in drunk, not pissed off. But if and it's happened before, I have to say, I come into this room on a night and I've absolutely shit face, right? And the room is spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And I get into bed and I close my eyes and I just want the spinning to stop. And I feel sick. And someone comes in the room, goes, "What's up with you?" "The room's spinning, I'm going to be sick." "No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Get up." "Well, I can't, can I? Because I'm shit-faced and I'm in that state, and that is affecting what I can't do." Similar thing to depression. You're in its grip and you can't do what you could do before. Not that you don't want to. Mostly you'd give anything to be able to, but you can't. You can't get out of bed. You can't get in a shower. And it sounds ridiculous, but you're gripped by something that you don't feel in control of. In the same way, if you're shit-faced, you can't go out and drive your car. Just couldn't happen, no matter how much you might want to. You can't, because you're in a state that doesn't allow you to. And so I like to use that example. And now another one is around a man riding an elephant, right? So you might be able to, you can be trained to kind of ride an elephant, same way you kind of ride a horse. And have some degree of kind of control which way it goes. Now if that elephant thinks, you know what, bugger off, I'm off over there, it's going, and you ain't going to stop it, because that elephant is much bigger and more powerful than you as the rider are. And it's a similar thing with our brain. Our brain is so powerful, and sometimes we struggle to control it, and it can take us down a really, really dark path. And I speak from painful experience of having been there, but we can learn to harness and manage the power of our minds. So that the mind and the brain is an incredibly powerful thing, and it's an organ like any other. And in the same way that, we know if we don't look after our heart, we could have a heart attack. If I eat crap all day, every day, if I drink far too much, if I don't move from the sofa, it's a good chance my heart ain't going to be in very good nick. Similar thing with our mental health. If we don't look after ourselves, and if we don't recognise maybe the things that can lead to negative mental health, then we can all be affected by it, because we're all human, we're all made of the same stuff. And just as we're not naive enough to think, well, I can eat what I want, I'll never have a heart attack, even if at some level we don't want to believe it, we know that that's bollocks. We know that our heart can fail, and any of us can be impacted by mental health. The problem is, most of us don't think we can. I certainly didn't. It can't happen to me until it does. So one of the things here is, if you are struggling with that, again, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're less than. It's an illness, but it is an illness that you can manage, treat, and recover from. And like I said, not only recover, but thrive as a result of it.